welcome to episode 3 of Alea's Hot Take. This is the experience where we elevate Black women, especially on our journey to wholeness, healing, self-love, and liberation. So for today's hot take, we're going to talk about Black women in witchcraft. I was talking with one of my good friends today about a course that I'm teaching, and we started talking about how as women and as Black women, we have been taught to be afraid of being labeled a witch. I wish I had a special effect right here because I would, put on some dun 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 music. And it got me to be thinking about how we are afraid of the word witch. Where does that fear come from? And then, so what does that mean about those of us that call ourselves witches today? So I don't know about y'all, but when I was growing up, witches were these things they were to be afraid of. That's what you called the old woman in the neighborhood that people didn't know a lot about. That's what you called the person that might have been a little bit peculiar or had certain ways about them. Witch is also used as a slur to talk about a woman who either was overly confident or who didn't follow by societal norms, but witch was always a bad word. I mean, we don't have to look further than Hollywood. We don't have to look further than our movies and costumes and everything around us to see that witch has always been seen as this bad thing. If you grew up in the church, you especially heard all of the reasons why witchcraft was something negative and why you should be afraid of it. How many of you guys ever heard about how, you're not supposed to do cards or play with cards? Even some denominations don't even allow you to use playing cards because it was associated with witchcraft. Even nowadays, you see all of these different memes and posts about be careful about using sage, or you've used crystal, or you use all of these things and it makes you a witch. But first, let's break down, what does the word witch even mean? And why is this something that's so vilified and demonized? And I'm using that word demonized in particular. So what a witch means to me, especially because I'm coming from a conjure tradition, but a witch is a person that is able to use the mundane elements of the world, such as herbs, crystals, etc., practical tools, and to use it to affect magic, sorcery. So not only are we using tools and regular practical materials to change our reality and change the reality of people around us, but it's also about how do you use those tools and use those properties to heal yourself. Now, some of you guys might say, well, that doesn't sound like such a bad thing. So what's the big deal and what's the big stigma about witchcraft? Well, the stigma comes from this idea that if you rely on being able to personally change your world and to change the events around you and to also to affect a different outcome, that somehow you are in competition with God. And God, I'm using that in quotes because a lot of different traditions define God differently, right? And so this whole idea that you are somehow putting yourself in a divine position or having a divine type power is seen as in competition with God, and therefore it must be bad. But in reality, if you're coming from a Judeo-Christian background or Abrahamic background, you can see that there are many instances in the Bible and in other texts about people that used the elements around them, that used their different powers, that use herbs and medicines to affect change. I mean, come on, we don't have to look further than the story of Jesus's birth to see that he was visited by who? The 3 wise men. And that word wise men actually was not until later translations, but the original term, and I'm not going to be able to speak Greek or Aramaic or any of the original languages, but the original English term that we began to use was magi, which are magicians. Also, if we think about what did the magi do, they followed the stars. That you followed astrology, and not every single, but many traditions have this element of sorcery. I'm just going to say it no better than that. I'm stumbling all over my words tonight, but that's okay because this is the hot take and we're just keeping it real and we're keeping it informal and just doing some education. So let's talk about, why is it so fearful for people to be able to have these powers in and of themselves? And what is wrong with being able to use your God-given or God's given talent to be able to affect change in the world around you, and not only affect change for your benefit, but also for your protection, for your safety, for all different kinds of reasons, and for your health? Well, it really boils down to power. You guys are starting to see a theme here. I started talking about this yesterday. It boils down to Folks who are being afraid of someone being able to be self-empowered and being able to do the work themselves, and therefore not having to go to a religious figure to be able to have access to divinity. It comes down to challenging these power structures that keep who in charge and keeps who below. And you really have to think about the fact that why would it be a sin, so to speak, for you to be able to use the talents and you to use the skills and use the material that all around us in order to help sustain life, to challenge life, to protect yourselves? And why, and what is it psychologically about not being told that it is wrong to be able to do those things for you? I remember when I was on my own journey to embracing, who I am and what I am. If you've been one of my Facebook friends for a while, like a couple of years ago, I was saying, I'm afraid, I don't know what to call myself, and I'm afraid of what title should I use, or I'm not sure what title I should use. And it's because even though I have not been a Christian for a while, I was still afraid of the stigma of being associated with something that is considered dark, that's considered bad, that's considered evil, until I had to do my own work and figure out why is it that certain traditions or certain beliefs, why are they considered evil? Where does that belief come from? Where did it begin? How do they infiltrate into practices that really are focusing on a lot of indigenous people, Black people, people from African descent? How are those practices vilified and demonized to be something bad, and where does that come from? So I'm going to get into all of this, and we're going to break down specific texts. We're going to break down specific power structures, and we're going to go into more detail about this in my class, Free Your Spirit, Free Your Mind. I hope that you're registered for that. But I wanted to do this quick hot take to talk about, why we are so afraid of this term witch, and where does that come from? And really what I implore you to do is, when you start to have these visceral reactions to things that you might be able to accept in one context, so we can accept there being, magicians in the Bible, so to speak, but we're afraid of being magicians in modern world. If you can accept, that we use incense in the Catholic Church and candles and all of these other things to have religious practices, but we demonize it when it's Santeria or another type of belief over here. If we can accept that there was sacrifice in the Bible, but we somehow think it's wrong to sacrifice animals even in our eating and consumption right now, and we think it's wrong to participate in animal sacrifice in our spiritual practices over here, where does all of that fear come from? And what does that say about the whitewashing of America and our spirituality? And what does it say about what do we come to believe about Black people in particular, and Africans specifically, and African descended people about their practices and what's good and what's bad? We're going to talk about all of this. We're going to talk about, the so-called dark magic and white magic and all of this kind of stuff. But I just wanted to talk about that really quickly in a hot take. So you guys do me a favor. I want you in the comments to comment below about, what images or what were you taught about witches and what was so wrong with them? And how does that compare to what you are believing now about systems of power, and about what does it mean to be a Black woman? What does it mean to be self-possessed? What does it mean to come into your own spirituality and to do that examination and really uncover and discover what do you truly believe and what do you truly know to be real based on your experiences and your perception. So that's all. I mean, you don't need to give me a whole essay. I gave y'all, former English teacher here, the whole essay topic, but I just really want to hear about your experience or your topic or, your take on this in the comments below. And please don't forget to click subscribe, to click like, share this with your friends, and sign up for the course, Free Your Spirit, Free Your Mind. Until tomorrow, this is Aleia's Hot Take. Thank you.